Well, welcome back to the Nullified Take channel on YouTube, where we've got the TNT takes for you on Australian Survivor, Titans versus Rebels. I am joined by the runner-up of Australian Survivor, Titans versus Rebels, Caroline. Caroline, how you doing?
I'm good, Chris. How are you doing?
I am doing amazing. I always get excited. You know, I had a very busy day at work today, and I was so tired by the end of the day. But when I knew I was going to interview you and I knew I was going to speak to a Survivor player, I was so excited. It just re-energized me coming back home. And I'm so excited to have you. You know, you're part of a very select group of, there's only a few people that have ever been runner-ups of Survivor. Has that sunken in yet? Like, I know it's probably bittersweet because you'd love to win, but even getting to the end, that's an accomplishment in itself.
I think getting on the show was an accomplishment. So getting to the end is like, there's still I think I'll be processing it for a long time, but I've come back down to earth now, and I really feel like I'm so proud of my game. I'm so proud of what I've done. I know what happened out there. I know what I did out there, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about it a little bit before going live. You said, you know, there's the show and the edit, which we all respect. It put out a great, I think, show for everybody to enjoy. And Australian Survivor, for me, the last couple of seasons have been slam dunks in regards to that. They're just putting on a spectacle. But then obviously you live out there. We see a snippet of what's happened when you're out on the island. And tonight, we're going to dive into maybe a few of the things that happened that we didn't see, some experiences you had out there. And I know the fans just love hearing the behind the scenes. And I want to say hello to a few people in the live already that have jumped in. We've got Chris all the way from the USA, as well as Danica. So it's very early in the morning in the USA. Both of them, I think, are new to Australian Survivor. I know Chris is new to Australian Survivor. Really loved your season. We've got Viova saying we've got our favorite midwife as well. Chris is very excited to hear from you as well. Jenny K saying, Caroline, as a super fan, what do you consider to be the best old school US season and players from the OG era in the first 10 seasons? Does that make sense? Because have you watched all of them, right? You've watched all of the years? Yeah.
So I've definitely watched all of old schools, all of US Survivor and all of Australian Survivor. Oh gosh.
Tough question off the rip here, Jenny. You didn't even get Caroline to like warm up into the podcast. You're like straight for the jugular.
Oh gosh, David versus Goliath. There's so many. China was amazing. I mean, I even loved Australia. Winners at War was amazing. I love them all, and I love them all for different reasons as well.
Yeah, I'm a very big Kage-yan fan.
I love Kage-yan. Yeah. Chaos Cass.
Yeah. Oh, your favorite was Cass? I can see that.
Well, she was one of my favorites. There were a lot of favorites on that season. I did love that season as well.
Yeah, brilliant season. Now, as a fan of the show and someone that has watched a lot of Survivor, were you equally as big a fan of the Australian franchise before applying? Like, did you give it the same amount of attention, or was it predominantly US franchise?
No, I probably obviously got more into my love of Survivor came from US Survivor, but then when the Australian season started, especially like we've just done season 9, so when Christy won her season in what in the new era of Australian Survivor is season 1. I watched it from then on, and I knew that coming into this season, we had so much to prove because last season was so amazing and had such an amazing winner. And so there was a lot of pressure on us. But then once we hit the beat, it was like, let's just do this. Like, let's just go have fun. You know, this is amazing. We're all here. You know, it was fantastic. And so sorry, you go.
No. So I was going to ask again, and what was the thing that got you? Because there's a lot of fans out there. I speak to fans all the time that are like, we love watching the show, but we could never go out there and actually play. Like, I'm not one of those. Like, I would gladly go out there and play. Even if they put me on my least favorite season, fans versus favorites, I would still go out there and play. You know, but there's a lot of fans who don't want to go there. Can you talk about a little bit about the motivation that you had to actually not just be someone sitting on the couch, but actually going out there and playing?
So, like, I've been a midwife for over 20 years. I've been a nurse for 30 years. I'm a mum of 3 kids. I'm married. I've, lived a very, a really interesting life. I've done lots of different things, but I've never really, my job is a full-on job, right? If you knew what a midwife did in a day, you would run 10 miles in the other direction. It's a hard job. It's an amazing job. It's the best job. But I just wanted to really do something for me. And because I loved the show so much, in 2019, I turned around to my husband one night and I was like, I think I'm going to apply. I think I really want to do this. I want to see if I can do this. I feel like this is something that I could be quite good at. And he just thought I was bonkers. He just thought I was crazy. And he was like, go right ahead. And so I did apply that year. I got through the auditions but then didn't get any further. And then obviously COVID hit. I had some personal things going on. It just wasn't my time. And then early last year, when you've applied for Survivor before, you get a notification in the mail that applications have opened again. And then I started tracking down casting producers on social media and ended up messaging one, and she said, get your application done, get your audition video. And you'll know that the application is a lengthy process. They know that they really want to see every single little itty ditty bit thing about you. But then the audition is where you can really shine. Like, there's nothing like really showing you. They want to see so much of you. And mine was just really funny. My daughter videoed it. I did it completely differently from my last video, but I just really wanted to take the piss out of myself and just really show them how much of a fan I was, but also what other qualities I could bring in terms of speaking to camera, making fun of myself and forming relationships with other people. And anyway, I loved it. I showed it to a friend again today. I'm really proud of it. Anyway, and so I ended up getting an audition, and that went great. At the audition, I made her laugh, I made her cry, and I thought, okay, I've really got this woman. And when you're eliciting those kind of emotions from people, that they're not going to forget you. And she said, look, I don't know, they might call you, they might not, we'll wait and see. And I was like, yeah, they're going to call me. Anyway. And yeah, they called me about 3 days later and said, okay, we want you to go and meet the executive producer, and we want you to meet some other people in a paneled audition. And I went and did that. And you've really just got to be yourself in that as well. And that was, of course you're going into something like that quite nervous, but you've just got to go in and be yourself and be the best version of yourself. And that's what I did. And I've got, I swear quite a bit naturally, and hopefully I won't embarrass you too much tonight. And I knew that there were a couple of things, there were a couple of personal conversations that I made with people in there that I knew they wouldn't forget me. I knew that they felt a bond with me. And I thought, as long as I can go in and do that and establish some kind of bond with people, then I'm going to be fine. And then we just had to wait. And it's quite a bit of a process to wait. But then when I was told that I was on the show, no one was at home. And I screamed. I jumped up and down. I said, I don't know how many fucks I said, but a lot. And it was the best feeling. I just thought, wow, okay, I've really done this. I'm going to be part of this Survivor family. And that was really important to me. So yeah, then it was a matter of getting myself ready. And at that point, I was already well and truly training with a personal trainer. Like, physically, it's a really, obviously you can see it's a hard game, but doing things like palm frond weaving and making fire every night. I bought myself a fire pit. I bought myself a flint. I bought myself coconut, the stuff that I thought that they would have out there. And I made fire every night before I went to bed. I'd do it 10 times, to see how many times I could get it done in 10 minutes, all that kind of stuff. So yeah. Yeah,
We've
there's
got some great live comments coming in while you're talking, so I want to bring up a couple. Chris said it is so nice seeing your husband on the show and seeing how proud he was that you made him so proud being on the show.
yeah.
Gabe says Chris is going to be stalking the poor Australian Survivor producers. He says
Yeah.
it like I haven't done it already. Like it's history, Gabe. I've already been in the
Yeah,
DMs.
your first kid. Yeah.
But I don't know if it's going to work again because Aileen apparently also did it. So, I don't
Oh,
know if it's
really?
going to work
Oh, no.
again.
I think you should do it, guys.
Matt says, Caroline, I'd love to know your background as a midwife. Is this something that you've done for a long time? What got you into that career path?
Oh gosh. So when I decided that I wanted to become a midwife, I was 22, and I at that point in Australia, to become a midwife, you had to do a nursing degree first. So I am a very determined person, Chris, and I know that you've seen my video before I went on, and I am a very determined person. And so somebody said, I wasn't quite, I was working in travel as a travel agent, and somebody said to me, my God, you'd be an amazing midwife. And I thought, bloody hell, that's something that fascinates me. It's something that interests me. And I ended up going to university, doing really well. I did my nursing degree. I had 3 children. And then when my youngest son was 3, I became a midwife, and that was another year of full-time study, and I was very determined to do that. And it's other than having my kids, it's the other thing that I am most proud of is my career. I've been, I know that people were kind of talking on the podcast about what makes a Titan. Well, I know that I was one of the best. Like, I know I've affected so many people's lives in such a positive way. And, to be a midwife, you have to be a strong, organized, disciplined, and very determined person as well, because you're a patient advocate, all that kind of stuff. So it was very important to me and I'm the type of person, I need to do well at everything I do. I don't just give 50%, I give 150%. And so I was, very determined to do well in that as well. But anyway, I love my career as a midwife. I will always be a midwife. Like, being a midwife is such a passion, and my passion is in women's health and female advocacy, and so it's something I will have with me till the day I die.
Yeah, and work was okay with you taking this time off? There wasn't any issues for you to take the time off to go away?
So I had taken long service leave, and so I don't know whether you know where I live, but I'm from Melbourne, but we moved to northern New South Wales about a year and a half ago, and I took long service leave, and I needed some time off, like after COVID, and then the ensuing. I lost my mother at the beginning of COVID as well, and then by the time that 2 years ago came up, I just needed a break from it. I definitely was very, very burnt out, as many, many midwives are. And, I gave everything 100% while over COVID. I think healthcare workers, as hard as it was for everyone, it was extremely difficult for healthcare workers, and where we were right at the forefront. And I'm working in birth suite with, parents, we're not sure whether the partner can come in. We're not sure. There are no visitors. They're walking in, and if they've got any symptoms, they're being tested, and quarantined. And it was so difficult. And we were also learning, not on the fly, but in a very disciplined manner, how an organized way, how all our processes had to change very, very quickly. So COVID was hard. So I didn't have to worry about asking anyone for any time off, because I'd taken some time off to just get myself back to myself again, really.
Yeah, I feel like the live chat's kind of taken over the interview here because they're asking really good questions. So I'm going to bring the next one up as well. Gabe is asking, Caroline, were you scared going in as a super fan? Older women really do well in Australian Survivor. It's primarily been Sean, Shane, and Janine that have succeeded. Were you aware of that? Was that sort of playing into your mindset? And how did that sort of affect your preparation going into the game?
It didn't affect my preparation in any way, other than I worked as hard as I could So, but my mindset going in was, okay, I need to get into an alliance, a majority alliance very quickly. I need to make myself I need to be working hard around camp. I need to make myself not invisible, but get the target off my back, because I knew that I was the oldest person on my tribe, on the Titans tribe, and I was the weakest person. I mean, I got onto that tribe and I called them the buttocks and biceps tribe, because everyone had the biggest biceps and the most beautiful butts you've ever seen. And so, and I was just like the ugly stepsister kind of waggling behind, but I just wanted to make myself extremely useful, and also not get under anyone's feet, not kind of hit the ground running and put a target on my back at all. So I was very conscious of not being that first boot. And, you know, it worked in our favor, because we established that majority of 7 on day 1, day 2. So I knew I'd got myself into a really good situation. And then I know we'll get into the food and the rice and all that kind of stuff, but I'll explain then how that came about, because I didn't want that role either. God, who wants to be the mum and who wants to be the cook? Not me. But anyway.
Yeah.
So I hope
and obviously the editors had a lot of fun with that, because they had to like focus on certain moments, and they were focusing on the moments where you had to put down the law. So if you want to talk a little bit about that, how that happened, because very early on you're kind of seen as a bit of a rice Nazi. You're almost like telling people
to be referred to as a rice Nazi, like I wanted to punch you guys through the screen. I was so we get there on, well, we didn't have flint, we didn't have fire for more than 3 days, Chris. It was wild. So obviously we lose that first immunity, we lose that first challenge, then we lose the first immunity challenge. And meanwhile, it's pouring with rain. So for the first 3 nights, it poured with rain. And our shelter was the shittest shelter, apparently, in Australian Survivor history.
Oh, wow. I'm surprised they didn't show us more of that.
Oh, it was bad. And I think Eden's spoken about, like, he was kind of waiting for that older guy to come out and say, yeah, this is how we build a shelter. And he was that older guy. And 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 I certainly was, like I said, I don't want to put a target on my back. I could have probably contributed to that, but I just thought, no, I'm going to hang back, and I'm going to do whatever you need me to do. I'll do whatever. Yeah, I'll serve in whatever role you need me to do. Anyway, by the time when we went to our first tribal council, we got flint, and but it was still pissing with rain, and so we had to wait till the next day till we could dry some wood and kindling and leaves out to actually ignite it. And then I remember Nathan turning around and going, so who's going to cook the rice? And, oh, you, Mum, you're going to cook the rice. Can you cook the rice? I was like, yeah, sure, no worries. It wasn't a role that I really wanted, but of course I knew how to cook rice. And so then I cooked rice. And, there isn't, in the edit, you see me saying to winner, like that one time that I said, and he had this huge, huge shell of rice. And what people don't know is that at that time, there were 5 people off having interviews, right? Because we're not all on the beach at exactly the same time. We've got to go and have our interviews and do things. And there were people missing. And so if they're missing, they're not getting the food. And so I wanted to make sure that everyone got fed, because this, we're only eating very small amounts, and we're only eating them twice a day. And so you don't want anybody to miss out, because you don't want to be that person that was responsible for that person missing out on food either. So you tell Tom, that
I will tell Tom.
It's such a difficult position to be in, because I'm trying to be the nice person, making sure that everyone got an equal share, or at least got a share of the food. And that is a very difficult. Do I want to be in that position again? Nah, that's not for me. But anyway,
Gabe here says someone had to ration the food. I felt bad for Caroline. Matt says they also felt bad for you being in that position.
Yep.
And then Brendan, I don't know if you know who Brendan is. He runs Australian Survivor memes on Instagram.
Oh, hey, Brendan, I know who you are.
So he says Lord of the Rice and then laughing emoji. And then also asks here, if you were invited back for a fans versus favorite or any partial returnee season, would you accept, and can we have a secret alliance? He wants to work with you.
You're on. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
It's gonna if you guys, if it becomes the TNT Alliance, I just want like some sponsorship right for that, please, since it was formed on the TNT podcast. Okay.
Yes.
But like, it's an interesting question. Like, you've gone through, I guess, the whole season. Like, you've actually seen it from beginning to end, right? And having gone through that,
and you're watching it too. So, like, people would say to me, "Haven't you seen this?" And I'm like, no, I'm watching it when you're watching it.
Yes. Yeah. So you've gone through this whole season. You've experienced that. Has that sort of burned you out from the experience? Or is it something where you're now feeling like, because I got so close, but I was one step away, there's still that itch that you feel like there's unfinished business? If you were to go back, you know, I think of, like, for instance, a runner-ups at war season, or, you know, maybe winners versus runner-ups or something like that. Surely there's something out there that you could return for in the future.
I love a fans versus favorites.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a few of us podcasters that are hoping, if there is a fans versus favorite season, they'll actually choose true fans of the show, ones that dedicate all their free time to talking about the show, you know?
I know.
Always hope.
I know.
Yeah.
I would look, I know that
Tom versus Caroline, that is the real rivalry we need to see on Survivor, I feel like.
We'd have a secret alliance. Wouldn't it be funny?
Tom, no one would expect it.
Wouldn't it be funny if Tom and I actually played together one day? That would be like, Tom needs to manifest that.
And you know what? Funny enough, Tom would work with you. He would be completely different if he was actually to meet you and play out there a bit.
And I'm not sure whether it was you or Kahuna was just like, Caroline's probably a really nice person in real life, and I really am. I am a really nice person. And I was saying to my friends, my God, and because they didn't understand why I was being portrayed like such a villain. But anyway, I'm happy. It's all good.
So let's talk about that, because obviously Tom's one of like many. You had three people in myself, Maki, and Kurno. I think were a little bit less biased. Like, I mean, you're not the only one that Tom went after. He went off after Kirby many a times, and Kirby played, in my mind, an excellent game.
Of course, Kirby played it. She was outstanding.
Yeah, but what's it like, I guess, from a player's perspective? You've watched the show before. You've been that person on the couch criticizing and saying, I could do so much better. This person, what are they on about? And now the script is flipped, and you go out there, you play the game, and you get to experience it from the other side. How has that sort of changed your perspective, I guess, of Survivor now? You know, and even maybe if you're watching the current Survivor US season, are you looking at it very differently? Yeah, is it different for you?
Oh, it's so different. Like, even watching the opening scenes of the Survivor 46 episode 1, like, I welled up, because I remember it took me back to that moment when you first hit the beach and you're looking around and you're like, oh my God, as a fan, I'm actually fucking here. Like, I'm really here. This is really happening. And, you know, you've got to kind of let that go and go, you know what? I'm here. I deserve to be here. I'm going to get into game mode. Let's do this. And I was on my tribe. I was one of 4 applicants. Like, the rest of them were recruited. So I think it was about 50-50 for the season. So I felt, and those people, we sorted each other out who those people were out pretty quickly. And I knew I wanted to work with people that also knew the game, that I could strategize with. And, you know, I know Eden's talked about it before, us like literally going out on day 2 and going and collecting wood together, and him and me turning around and saying, you know, when are we going to fucking talk about alliances, kind of thing, because nobody's talking about alliances yet. And anyway, we did.
So that's interesting. So, you know, getting on the tribe, is that the thing that kind of bonded the middle-aged mafia, was the fact that you were all applicants of the show rather than people who were recruited, and most of the people outside of that group were?
No, it wasn't what bonded us at straight away, because of course we didn't know until we kind of sat down and talked. But you could kind of tell that at least I knew with Eden and Mark that they knew something of the show, and even Charles. But no, we definitely, like, because it's all about numbers, Chris. And so it's about, it doesn't even necessarily need to be with people that you like very much, but you know that you need to be in the numbers, and getting into the numbers was really important. But the fact that I really liked these people was even better. Like, those first week on our tribe, it was kumbaya. Like, I know that you saw from the edit that the rebels were having a fun time. We were having the best time. Jaden would build these huge fires. We would tell stories every night. We were, everyone was learning, having really beautiful conversations with everyone and learning so much about everyone. It was awesome. Like, it was so good to get to know these people, and they were all obviously very interesting people, really smart. So yeah, it was hard to start voting people off, to be honest, but you got to get on with the business, don't you?
100%. And I did want to ask, before we start getting into the voting dynamics and who you sort of sussed out very early on and wanted to go against, what was your thoughts about the actual theme when you found out that it's going to be Titans versus Rebels? Did it affect your mindset, like knowing that there are a bunch of Rebels on the other side? Did you think that maybe they would be more difficult to work with, less predictable due to the tagline that they got in there? Or did you give very little thought to the theme of the season?
I pretty much gave very little thought to the title, because I think once you get out there, like, I think there is a Titan and a Rebel in all of us, to be honest. I think there is a villain and a hero in all of us. And so I really felt like I could, and I'm the type of person, I can sit down with anybody and have a conversation. It doesn't matter where you've come from or what you've done or anything like that. I don't care if you're a Titan or a Rebel. It didn't matter. So that was of no consequence to me. It was actually about the people. And, I think that for me, it was very much irrelevant. It was about the relationships that I was going to make with other people out there, regardless of who they were or what they'd done.
And I'm very curious, because obviously the season finishes, you meet a lot of the people that you played with. I'm assuming you've now met a lot of the players you didn't even play with. Yeah. Is there anybody, like, maybe from like the Rebels tribe that you didn't have that chance to play with, that you actually really connected outside of the game, and you now look back at it and say, wow, if we were in the same tribe from the start, maybe we would have had something good going?
Yeah, Garrick and I. Yeah, like I never got to meet Garrick. Like, I mean, other than being tackled by him when we were doing one of the water challenges, we never even communicated with each other. We never, because you're on one side of the mat, they're on the other side of the mat. And what you also don't know out there is that when we did the rope pull challenge, that was stinking hot day, and you see obviously Valeria and I, our rope pull went on for the longest. Our rope pull was, I think it was something like 28 minutes, and we're in like 35-40 degree heat. That was probably one of the hardest hardest physical challenges, and I got 6 blisters on this hand and 4 blisters on this hand. Anyway, but after that, the reason that finished and we won was because Peter at the other end, she pulled out, and then she fainted, and then 10 minutes later I fainted. And so we were supposed to go for 5 rounds, and we could only go for 4 rounds because it was so bloody hot out there. It was so taxing on everyone. And nobody saw that, because I wanted to get my family to watch that episode, and I was like, I don't know what they're going to show, because they had a camera in my face when they were dragging me off there, but no, they didn't show any of it. So yeah, it's interesting what's in the edit, what's out of the edit.
It's very interesting, because I feel like if that kind of thing happened on Survivor US, that's what they will show. They will show players fainting. They will show players, like Jeff is really focused on the hardship of Survivor. And we spoke about this a little bit beforehand, is that it's almost in Australian Survivor, we love the edit in general, but they don't really show a lot of the struggling sort of parts of it. Like, how often did it rain, for instance, when you were out there? I've heard Samoa can get really bad with rain and things like that.
And when it rains, it doesn't just sprinkle, it pours. Like, it absolutely, it's torrential. And there were some nights out there where it felt like it was like a hurricane, that because when after tribe swap and I was on the Rebels beach, that's an ocean beach, and so we're very exposed to the elements there because we're on sand and the ocean's right there. So it was oh my God, Ree built, and I helped her, and other people helped her, but we built a door to put on the front of our shelter because the wind at night sometimes could be so, like, the rain would come in sideways. And like I said, it didn't just sprinkle, it poured. And we were lucky. When I was at the Titans Beach, we won the tarp, and winning the tarp was like the best thing ever. And then when we went to the Rebels Beach, we literally had to like plug all the holes. We would spend, if we had a day off, we would spend the day, like Kitty and Ree and all of us would be out collecting leaves and palm fronds and anything we could to plug the holes because it was bad.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, all I have in my mind is like Survivor Samoa way back when Russell Hantz played it, and him talking about I get stronger when everybody else gets weaker in the game, and it's just this downpour of rain the whole time. And you had Eric with the very short buzz cut hair, like literally sitting inside of a tree trying to hide, like it was like a hollowed out tree trying to hide from the elements. Like, so I remember that, and I always think to myself, they're still in Samoa with Australian Survivor, and they never show those difficult moments. Like Gabe says, Australian Survivor really focuses more on the game rather than the human sort of struggle. Chris also says, oh my God, Caroline and Carrick would have been such an iconic duo in the game.
So and we've got to know each other outside of the game now, and like he's just a beautiful friend now. We're just so devastated that we never got to a tribe swap together. And we talk about what could have been.
You've got Kirby to blame for that one.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
Gabe says, what drew you to Kitty so early on, Caroline? And I think Kitty, would the way the show portrayed it, she was your ride or die. She was your number one. Is that accurate? And can you talk about maybe broadly even how she worked with you in those early stages versus going to the first tribe swap? Because in that tribe swap, I felt like she was a lot of your social game at times, and the way the show portrayed it, especially with the girls, like with the Rees and the Saras of the world, it kind of drew them in.
Yeah, no, we were definitely doing that together. I mean, I kind of decided, I said to Kitty, when we decided to vote Viola, you go and talk to Ree, I'm going to go and talk to Sarah. And that's how we did it. And so we took one each, and that's how we got their two votes. But when I first, like I said to you earlier before we started the podcast, like Kitty and I laid eyes on each other on the barge, and we didn't know whether obviously we found out that day that we were on the same tribe together. And I don't know, there was just a lot of nonverbal communication going on the barge that day. And then the second we hit that beach, we just grabbed each other's hand, and she was like, you're my number one. I was like, you're my number one. Let's just really be honest with each other. And we spent so much time talking and getting to know each other's life. We actually got into trouble. So we just shut up because we were talking so much to each other about each other's lives. And then she didn't know a lot about the game. So she was like, great, you know about the game, so let's work together. But we were a really formidable duo, because what you don't see is that Kitty and I were both very social players, and she worked her magic so many times in terms of getting Mark and I back together. That was instigated by Kitty, and we can go into that in later as well. But she was an amazing social player, and she would be the one, we'd think of plans together, of course, and we'd debate with each other, okay, are we going, because you'd be thinking, okay, what's this person, if we do this, what is that person, how is that person going to react, what's that person going to do, what's that person going to do? Like, we went flying by the seat of our pants. A lot of thought. We tried to put a lot of thought into everything, and she's a super intelligent person. She was great to, bounce things back at me and say, no, I think we should do it this way, or I'd say, no, I think we should do it that way. Yeah, she was amazing out there, and she was definitely my ride or die from the minute we hit that beach. Yeah, it's really sad what happened in the end, in terms of where her vote went, but I know she's got her own reasons for that, and I know what they are, and I completely respect that.
Yeah, and I feel like Kitty is the perfect Alliance member in a way to have, because she also was very transparent with her face. Like, you could read very
Totally.
easily if she was lying, she was uncomfortable. Like, that's the kind of person you want to work with, right? Someone that can't lie
She's
to
never
you.
going to lie to you, and she's never going to betray you. And so, I know in the edit they kind of show her and I, like, she's, that Kitty betrayed Caroline. Kitty never betrayed Caroline. We decided together that she wanted to vote one way and I wanted to vote another. And we thought, gosh, we can make this work so beautifully. You're getting information from there and I'm getting information from here, and we can bring it back and do it together. And we needed to feel free to play our own games as well, because I don't think that you should be, I know that this is a season where, there weren't, alliances changed all the time, that we voted in voting blocks a lot of the time. And so therefore things changed. And I also knew, like, as a fan as well, that 24 hours is a very long time in Survivor, and that maybe my head was on the chopping block that day. But if it was on the chopping block that day, then sure as eggs, it was going to not be on the chopping block the next day. So she and I worked really well together. And we were the Thelma and Louise alliance. They didn't show that either. We just adored each other. I have so much respect for her. I'm so glad to have met her out there. She was so much fun. God, she made us laugh, Chris. She made us laugh so much. She was hilarious. And that's what you want. You want somebody you can talk to, cuddle up to, and cry to, but then also talk strategy with.
Yeah, it's interesting. We never really saw that part of her personality on the show at all, but you definitely filled in some blanks for me, because as a viewer, I found it extremely strange that she betrayed you, and I put that in quotations for those that are listening to the audio format of this podcast, but she kind of betrayed you in the show, but you were so good with that. Like, you like, there was a very different way that you approached Mark versus Kitty's betrayal, and we'll definitely talk about that a little bit, but I want to backtrack a little bit, because we had this question asked earlier by one of the live audience as well, but I on purpose held back from it. I think it was Blood Money who asked this question. And can you talk us through the Viola vote, and maybe start off with where you saw the initial rifts early on? Because there were elements of you following Viola and Valeria around, and the show really focused on that. And Valeria and Viola was kind of aware of you following them around as well. But can you talk about?
You asked this, because that was all just complete bullshit. I never ever intentionally followed them, ever. I never, like, when you see me go out into the sea because I was washing like a stick that I used to stir the rice with, I did not have any clue that I was interrupting their conversation that was about me. So I had no idea, but I never ever intentionally followed them or tried to track what they were saying. I actually, especially early on, had a really lovely relationship with both of them. They're both incredible. Like, both of them have just had they're both so young. I mean, Viola was 22 and Val was 31. Like, their lives up until that point, like, coming out to Survivor, they've lived big lives already. And so they had some really interesting stories. But what Kitty and I did notice was that, because Mark he would have Viola sleeping on one side of him and Valeria sleeping on the other, because he had that beautiful big woolen poncho, and you could see what Val was wearing out there. She didn't have a lot of warm clothing, and so he kept them warm at nighttime. And he, like, even at one point, he said to us, to Eden, Kitty and I, he's like, I think I'm going to have to tell the V's that I can't sleep with them anymore, because it's making me look like I do everything with them. And we were like, well, it's up to you. You do what you need to do. But, from the rest of us, you could see that they were getting closer and closer. But then I could, I could definitely read the room with Viola. I knew that she thought that I was the weakest person on the tribe, and I just got an uneasy feeling about her. I didn't actually specifically know that she was putting my name already out there, although some people have said that I knew. I didn't know, but I did know instinctively that she was coming for me. I could feel it. And I say that I can feel Viola coming for me, and just some interactions that she and I had, I thought, fuck, I've got to get her before she gets me, because she's coming to get me. I'm right plucking fruit here for her. So, and I knew that she had a great relationship with she could talk to Winner and Jaden. Yeah, and obviously she had Mark. I didn't know that Mark was as close to them as I've since found out, since watching the show and everything. But I definitely wanted to keep Mark close, and so I went for Viola.
Did Mark have a conversation with you afterwards? We've had him on the show, and I don't remember.
Yes.
The problem with having Mark on the show is we had him on the show with Ferris.
Yes,
I definitely feel like I should, and I love having both of them on, but then you kind of have to split your resources between asking both questions. So I don't know if I actually asked them this question. Have you spoken to him about like when he would have made the move, if he was going to make the move against you? Was that like actually in the works? Because it felt to me like he was keeping her from, he was trying to keep her in check from doing that. That's the way it looked like.
Yeah, I mean, Mark and I have spoken. He's the person I've spoken to the most since I've left the show. Mark and I love that man. Like, he's experience that he and I had out there. We went through a lot together. A lot together. And so I don't know when he was he gunned for me 3 times. So he definitely got close twice. So I've never discussed with him when he was actually going to really, like, if he was even going to try and pull the trigger again. But I can only assume that after he won the car, that, you know, we needed to stick together. We needed our numbers together. So he wasn't going to gun for me then, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. We've got a certain Mr. Tom in the live audience, and I've just sent Tom a message. Tom, if you have got the time, if you're close to home, jump on. You know, Caroline would love to have you on the podcast and have a chat with you face to face. Saying Team Caroline all the way, and then people are saying that switch up. They're saying they're calling him a switch up here with this. I do think we need to get Tom on the podcast at some point as well. If he can jump on.
I hope he does. I think it's so easy to judge a person by what they look like and what you assume their motives for going out there are. But there's so much more to a person than that. Thanks, Chris.
Chris is saying, Gafrunda, pull his ass out. He needs. We've been saying the whole season he needs to be on the podcast.
I don't want to embarrass him, but I also want to, like, I want him to. Well, I want you all to know, like, I'm the person that you see out there is completely different from the person that you're meeting right now. Obviously,
and I think it's the same with Tom. And I mentioned this to you prior to the podcast.
Yes.
We all have a character to play. Like, I'm kind of like the dad. I keep everybody in check and try and be as impartial as I can. And then Tom, I don't know, like, he plays this character up sometimes. Mucky plays a character up. I feel like me and Kuna are like the normal ones. It's probably why we would never get on Survivor, and both Tom and Mucky will end up getting casted, because they're like the two extremes when it comes to the podcast.
I can't wait for Tom and I to play together in 2025. Come on, let's go.
Yeah. We need to see it. People are daring Tom to get online as well. They're all saying he should get online. So peer pressure at the moment for him to come online. There's no pressure
for me, but I'm obviously, like, he's going to have to retract that rice Nazi comment. Let's be honest.
Yeah, definitely. I fully agree with you. But no, that gives me a really good insight in regards to your thoughts with Viola. And one thing that was interesting, like, on that vote as well. So you go ahead, Caroline.
No, you go. I'll answer at the end.
Yeah, so one thing that was interesting for me on that vote is that it looked like Eden was the most reluctant to make the vote against, because he looked at voting out Viola. Potentially, he had some foresight in the edit that was going to be an issue down the line with Mark. Did you guys think about that? Was that a part? Because it looked from an audience standpoint, and again, I'm saying it from an audience standpoint because obviously we see the edited show. It looked really bad as a game move for us, looking at it where you cut Mark. But like you said, you weren't aware of how close him and Viola was. How much consideration sort of went into that? And were you kind of shocked that Mark, like, because he started gunning after you very hardcore after that, after you tried to still work with him?
Yep. And I know that you guys have talked about that, you know, that I really wasn't reading the room in terms of how he was going to think of me afterward. But you have to realize that I didn't realize he was as close to Viola as he was. You know, that he kept that very hush-hush and very secret to himself. So from our perspective, well, certainly from Kitty's and mine, like she had to go because I knew she was gunning for me. So when somebody's gunning for you out there, you know, like if it's got to be her or it's going to be you. And if I hadn't got her then, she would have tried to get me at the next tribal council, and I can see that now. But I knew that once we went to that Rebels Beach and there were some things that happened in terms of some conversations and interactions that happened, and I thought, oh shit, I need to do something about this right now, because you only get a certain amount of time that you can scramble to get your votes together before we go to tribal council. And I just made that decision, and I just said to Kitty and Eden, we're doing this. And I know in the edit you see Eden like, should we, shouldn't we, should we, shouldn't we? And I was like, no, we're bloody doing it. Yes, I definitely thought about how Mark was going to react. And I just wanted to be honest with him. I was going to say to him, I felt she was gunning for me. What would you do in that situation? If somebody's coming for you, are you going to gun for them? Of course you bloody are. Like that makes that at that moment in time, that's what made the most sense. And I thought, and Kitty was like, you know, like we felt that we had a good enough relationship with him. Certainly you don't see it, but we spoke so much, and we definitely felt like we had that relationship that we could tell him honestly, this is why we did it. We hope you understand, and we still definitely want to work with you.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very interesting. And, you know, because one of the other things that sort of stood out for us on that was that after Mark obviously sort of had a direct shot back at you, and he tried twice and twice failed to get you out of the game, there was that moment where you sort of said you didn't want to sleep next to him. You were really terrified. And it came across, even for us as an audience, I'll admit it, like we were like, wow, that seems a bit strange because you've taken a shot at him. Can you talk through that with us?
Yes,
and like,
I can't wait to talk through this, because when that is shown in the edit, you see that at the start of the episode. You see me crying, and you see me crying at the start of the episode, but it didn't actually happen then. It happened after that tribal council. So Chris, if you can imagine, you're sleeping beside somebody every night and you're lying there and you're talking to each other, D&Ming, like you're having deep and meaningful conversations about your husbands, your wives, your lives, your dreams, secrets. Mark and I spoke about a lot, and I really thought that we had something more than that, like more than what they showed. And so when that night, when Valeria said those things to me at that tribal council, and then they tried to, obviously I knew straight away it was me, and then I knew, oh shit, they're voting for me tonight. And I thought, I'm okay. I know I've got the votes, and Mark doesn't know I've got the votes. But I thought, I've got the numbers here. And then when we got back to camp that night, like I was like, you asshole, like we've been sleeping beside each other every night. I feel like we had something, and then you've just gone and shat all over it. That's why I said what I said. And
it's interesting. It's very interesting because obviously if you spend time with friends in real life, you know, you spend X amount of hours with them you maybe go for a barbecue, you're spending 5 hours there with them, and then you don't see them for a week.
Yeah, he's the last person I'm seeing when I go to sleep. He's the first person I'm seeing when I wake up. Like, we were so kind and respectful to each other, and because that's the way you need to be when you're sleeping in such close quarters with people that you're getting to know. But at that point,
Can I ask another question on that? Because it's very
Yeah.
fascinating to me. Like the thing that got me hooked on Survivor was the psychology, the human psychology
Yes.
aspect of it,
Yes.
right? It just got
Ditto.
me hooked.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and there must be something about like, because it sometimes is hard for a viewer that hasn't experienced it to understand it. But you're literally sleeping next to this person, you're relying on them for body heat and for survival, and then you've got this element of getting voted out in a game that game becomes your reality. Does it
I know.
almost feel like life or death? You know, like my torch getting snuffed, I am almost like this is that instinct, that is the survival instinct that also kicks in at a very primal level, almost, because this is your life in the game and you're relying on someone to keep you safe in the game. Like, does it have like that type of a effect on you when you're playing the game out there?
Yes, and it does. Like, and certainly with the Viola vote, it was my life. I knew my life was my Survivor and my dream and my time out there on the island that was so important to me that I've waited so long to do. I'm not going to jeopardize. I'm not going to let one person jeopardize it, and so that's why I did what I did at the time. And then, you know, and the way I reacted with Mark when I did. I mean, obviously, I was shocked, but then, you know,
How does it
Kitty.
change when you get out of the game? Like, you know, because you had this very
Yep.
primal, deep instinct while you're in the game. You're in the fishbowl, I should almost say, and you now
Yeah.
get out of the game. Clearly, you and Mark have got a decent relationship. You still talk now, and you know, how does it change? Like, how do you switch after the game and take that sort of? Do you still have that? Like, is there still those feelings? Like, do you let
No,
it go and leave it at the
no,
game? Leave it on Samoa?
no, definitely. It's all out on the beach, Chris. It's definitely not here. I let it go out there even. Like in the end, gosh, like it's so emotional. I can't even explain how that last like 3 or 4 days on the island, how emotional it is, being out there and experiencing it with Ferris and with Mark and with Raymond and with Kirby as the final five, and then I was the final female, and gosh, so many emotions. And I'm very happy to go into that as well. But Mark and I have definitely, like, we think that we've gone through something so special out there together. And like when I first got back, I explained it like a toxic marriage. Like, we loved each other, we hated each other, we loved each other, we hated each other. And then we had Kitty, who was this amazing conduit. She had this gift of bringing people together, and she's like, come on guys, you know, we've got to get together, we've got to start working together again. And she was so beautiful, she was so amazing. And so we literally, like, we'd look at each other, we'd give each other a hug, and he and I would hash it out. Like, we'd talk it all out. And you saw some of that, but you didn't see all of that. And there was a lot of that.
Yeah. I feel like I've got a really good bond with Mark as well. The first time I tried to get him onto the podcast, he gave me his phone number and I phoned him in the middle of his McDonald's order. So I now know what Mark orders at McDonald's. So if we ever were to play the game together, Mark, if you betray me, your secret's out. I'm telling the world exactly what Mark eats when he goes to McDonald's. Yeah, exactly. I've got some blackmail material on him.
We talked so much about food out there. I'll let you know that. We talked about food, sex, and going to the bathroom. Like,
the things that matter. It's the important things in life.
it was so funny, non-stop. I know all the McDonald's orders that everyone would take, and what everyone wanted as soon as they got off the show. And it was so funny, so funny. God, we laughed.
I do want to backtrack for a second before I move
Yes.
forward again, because Gabe had a question here for you and asked, if you had both of the V's on the beach with you, who was your first target out of the two of them? Would it always have been Viola, or did you feel like Valeria could be a bigger threat? Like, where were you sort of leaning towards if they were still both in the game in the same tribe as you?
It would have definitely been Viola.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So she, in your mind, was like the bigger threat out of the two.
Yes, and you know, have a think about it. Like, it post-merge, because we knew that merge was coming as well. I mean, that girl, I mean, taking nothing away from Valeria, look at her. She was an amazing physical threat. She was an even bigger physical threat than I thought she was ever going to be. Or I think anyone ever thought she was going to be. She was incredible out there. But look at Viola. Like, Viola she was so strong, so strategic, and I just thought, to me, she would have been my target regardless of whether, and maybe things would have been different if the tribe swap had gone differently and there was Val on our beach, but no, Viola was still the one that I felt, me personally, that she was the one gunning for me.
I would have thought, just based on the edit again, because I don't know Viola, don't know Valeria as well in person. I'd love to talk to both of them as well. I would talk to everybody. I would literally interview every single person in your cast because I thought it was such a good cast.
Yeah,
everybody. I thought they were cast at this season. Hats off to the casting team. But looking at them, Valeria to me seemed more like she was very blunt. Where Viola had she had this social game about her as well, where I feel like Valeria probably, like the way that the edit showed her just being very brutal with her comments and things like that, was that very accurate to how, I know she probably doesn't mean anything bad by it, but is that kind of how she comes across?
There was definitely yes, she's, I think you knew where you stood with Valeria. Do you know what I mean? She didn't hide those things from you because that's not in her nature to do so. Although I know I've heard her in discussions with Mark, she thought that when we went to a feast and you see in the edit me telling her exactly what happened with Viola, and I told her the truth. And she didn't believe me, and then she went back to Mark and spoke about how she thought that she'd been lying to Kitty and I, and how she thought that she got away with it, that we didn't realize that she was lying, and Kitty and I knew she was lying. We knew she was going to gun for us. Come on, she had that written all over her face. So she was a bit easier to read in terms of that, but no, at that time Viola was the right choice at that time.
So I was going to let this question slide personally, but Australian Survivor memes, they kind of setting you up with this one. He's asking, can we talk about the Nathan's jacket?
Let's talk about Nathan's jacket. Bloody oath. That jacket. Okay, well, Brandon, I will, and I'll tell you all, that jacket kept me warm. So Nathan left. He left all his shit. When he was voted off, he left all his stuff in the shelter. Val was sleeping next to Mark, so she had the Mark's poncho going on, and whatever clothes they had clothes over the three of them. I had nothing. I had body heat. I was actually at that point sleeping beside Jaden, so I'm not snuggling up to Jaden, and I needed to keep warm because at nighttime it was freezing. So I got that jacket. The jacket was just left there. And I literally I would curl up into a ball and I would sleep under that jacket. I slept under that jacket. Gosh, how many nights? What day did Nathan leave? Day 8, day 9 or something? Well, I slept under his jacket for 39 nights. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I had no clue that Valeria was wondering where the jacket was. Do you know what I mean? I had no idea that she thought that the jacket was hers. I had no idea until Merge. And then Raymond said to me, oh my God, the jacket, how come you've got the jacket? Valeria's wanted the jacket. And I was like, what are you talking about? I've had the jacket the whole time. I'm not letting go of the jacket. And the day that you see me say to her, please, it was raining that day. And that's the only thing that was keeping me warm at night. Whereas she was sleeping beside Mark. Mark was keeping her warm at nighttime and I didn't have anything. And so that was my warmth. So yeah.
It's a lesson to everybody. It's a lesson to everybody that's ever going to go play this game. Anything you do, it's going to get hyper focused. They're going to put it on a show. They're going to edit because they've got to tell a story, and they had to tell the story of why you didn't get the votes at the end. So this was little, I guess breadcrumbs that they left throughout the season for people just to point to say, oh, it makes sense why Caroline didn't potentially get it, but it's not the full story. And that's why podcasts are great because it gives us that context.
Yeah, and that was one interaction, that probably the only interaction that they, of course, got on camera with Valeria and I about the jacket, because I wore the jacket. It was hung up above where I slept and to dry out during the day because Chris, nothing dried. I went with the worst clothes to Samoa. And nothing, I had a shirt and a wind cheater and they were never, ever dry ever. So
Yeah.
you were sleeping in damp clothes, and because the jacket was so well padded, and sleeping with that over me, even on the night like after merge, and I remember like the shelter's leaking water, it's pouring. I've got this like rain coming through the shelter, and I literally put that over my head and slept like that with over my head, not caring if the rest of my body got wet at all, because I just wanted to sleep, because I knew we had a challenge the next day, and you just would do anything for sleep.
Now, rumor innuendo out there is that Nathan's jacket was never really returned to Nathan. The producers have confiscated it after the season. Is this true? Do the producers have this just in case Ghost Island Australia is a thing?
Okay.
Will Nathan's jacket make an appearance in Ghost Island?
Let's set the record straight, right here, right now. Okay.
I need to know.
Okay, I'm going to tell you it straight.
It's an exclusive. We ask the very important questions on the TNT podcast, right. Everyone.
Okay, Australia, you know what happened to Nathan's jacket? I'll tell you what happened to Nathan's jacket. The last day, Ferris and I, obviously in the shelter on the last day, we know that we're having to get ready to go to tribal council. I asked them, can I collect everyone's like items that people have left? Can I pick them up and take them back to tribal to give to everyone after? And I was told I could. So I had a sarong. So I didn't collect everything, but I collected like Kitty's sarong, Nathan's jacket, and all sorts of different bits and pieces that I thought people might want after the show. So I had this huge sarong full of stuff, including Nathan's jacket. And I took it, I dragged it. Oh my God, I walked like 2 kilometers.
Did Ferris not help you?
No.
Horrible. Yeah. We're going to have to go shame Ferris for this. He makes you carry all of that on his own?
I didn't ask for help. But no, he didn't help me. But that doesn't matter. But anyway, I dragged this thing back to transport to go to tribal council, get it to tribal council, and they say to me, can't take it in, Caroline. And I'm like, are you joking? I've dragged this thing, including Nathan's jacket, all the way from the shelter where we go to tribal council, and they said, nah, you can only take your stuff in. And I was pretty devastated, because what I actually wanted to do is I wanted to give Nathan back his jacket. What also nobody knows is that Raymond during the show said, after the show, Caroline, can I have Nathan's jacket? And I was like, sure, Ray, you can have the jacket. But my intention was to give the jacket back to Nathan. I was so grateful that I had his jacket to keep me warm for as many nights as it did, warm and dry as much as it possibly could. Do you know what I mean? So that's the story of Nathan's jacket.
So there is still a chance, you're saying, that the producers did grab his jacket and that potentially we could see it come back on Australian Survivor Ghost Island. No chance?
I don't think so. I think it's probably gone, Chris. Yeah,
you're breaking so many fans' hearts by saying that. Fans were like
so maybe if I get on the next season, I've got to try and find that jacket and I've got to wear it.
Yeah, I feel like now it's like how Boston Rob has got the Boston Rob hat. You've got to have like Nathan's jacket as like your armor. Yeah, I'm gonna have to. That should be in the clause. Like, if you want me to return to play again, I will only come back if I can have if
I can wear the jacket
replica. Yeah, of Nathan's jacket.
So I love that. Have to be in a blue tribe because the jacket's blue.
Yeah. Everybody here is saying no. We love Nathan's jacket. This is the real content everybody wanted. Everybody wanted Nathan's jacket to be on Ghost Island and turn into an advantage if people got it into the game. You know, but I wanted to know, with the whole vote, when you got to the merge, you worked with Ferris, Eileen, and Raymond for a vote, and it was very well done. Like, I actually even applauded it here on the podcast, the fact that you were willing to look at other avenues. Clearly, Mark and Val at that point didn't want to play game, or they didn't want to play ball. In the confessionals, a lot of it was like, I'm working with the devil. Like, why was Ferris perceived as this devil in the game? Or like, it felt like the whole season, everybody was saying Ferris is this devious player, but he, up until that point, from a viewer standpoint, and I know the perception's probably different because you don't see the edit, he seemed like an extremely loyal guy from what we saw. Can you maybe talk to that a little bit and why you kind of said that and why you felt like you were going to work with the devil?
Because Kelly. So Kelly came to our tribe for a few minutes. Yeah. So she gave us the down low on a few what her interpretation of what was going on at the rebels camp. And what did she call him? She called him a mafia boss, I think. And
you're
so
like, there can only be one mafioso in this game, and it's not going to be Ferris.
And anyway, and so when I met Ferris, I mean, he was just beautiful. I just felt like I could just go and snuggle under his arm, and he was like a big, warm, cuddly teddy bear. But, you know, Ferris was obviously there to play hard, and he was, I could see him watching everybody so closely. Anyway, but I thought, you know, I thought I was fucked, Chris. Like, honestly, I really had to turn things around because at that point, I knew that the target was definitely going to be on my back again. And how was I going to do this? And like I said, I'm very good at talking to people, and I adored Ferris and getting to know Raymond. Like, after I finished sleeping next to Mark, I moved up the back of the shelter, and I was like, it was Ferris, Raymond, myself, Alex, Jaden. Yeah, it was great. And they were so kind to me then, especially Alex. Like, I have such a soft spot for Alex.
Alex is on the podcast next, by the way. He's coming on Thursday. So there you go. So for everybody who wants to hear from Alex, he'll be on the show as well.
Yeah, he was a darling. I mean, you know, obviously he got me in the end, but he, as a human to human, he was out underneath that shelter and doing challenges and everything. He was very kind to me. But yeah,
you look conflicted. You actually look conflicted when it came to, because you work with them for a vote, and then you left that alliance. And to me, and I could be wrong here, it felt like the reason you left were because the people you were working with didn't necessarily want to work with Ferris long term. But it looked like you actually were conflicted about that because he saved you in the game in that moment.
I said, so what you don't see is I said no. I said, like, as Eden came to Kitty and I, or us separately and then together, and said, I want to make a big move. I want to get Raymond out. And I was like, absolutely not happening. I think you see me do that, actually. I think you see me say absolutely not.
Yeah, I do think I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, no, you can do it. I'm out. I'm not in this vote with you guys. And then Kitty and I spoke with each other, and we were like, we looked at all the pros and cons, and we were like, no, we can't do this. Like, we need to do at least one more vote with Ferris, and because we need to get his trust. And, you know, he saved me that night. So anyway, I did feel really, like, I felt terrible, actually. And so I said no, and then Kitty and I said no, and then he came back to us again and he said, well, these are the reasons why I think we should do it. You know, you're going to be at the bottom of their majority. So if you think that you're going to hold any power in there, you've got another thing coming. And I thought, you know what? From that perspective, he's right. But, you know, and it was like, what do I do? Like, do I stick with Ferris and be at the bottom of his alliance, or do I stick with the numbers, or do I try and make this big move with Eden? And oh my God, Eden was just so, you know, Eden was so amazing to play with out there, and he had such he had so many ideas in terms of strategy, and then trying to work through all of that and make sure that it was the right thing for my game. It probably wasn't the right thing for my game at that particular point, but I went along with it for him. And unfortunately, it was his undoing. And that was, oh, fuck. Chris, that was one of the worst nights out there, because I knew it was his baby's birthday the next day. The next day happened to be the auction. It was like far out, like in terms of Survivor bucket list stuff to tick off. It was a huge day that he missed out on. And all Kitty and I kept saying to each other was, we wish Eden was here. But
this is what you get, I guess, when you put people into the game that are not necessarily students of the game. They do unpredictable things. And in this moment, Jaden did a very unpredictable thing in Revenge of Winner. And you know, when you talk about some people being recruits and some people being applicants, I think it really makes the game hard to predict at times. Was there any warning signs for you throughout the whole season where you were like, I don't know if I would be able to rely on Jaden's vote long term. Was there ever any of those doubts, or the fact that the way that the edit showed him, he always came to you last minute for the vote? Did he build some loyalty, I guess, up to that point where you didn't have a reason to distrust the vote going into that night?
Well, you know, especially in the early part of the game, Jaden was definitely, he was like, you guys sort it out. You tell me what you want me to do. And so we didn't, you know, what we should have done more of, and I know Mark has also spoken about this, is that we should have we didn't think he wanted to be in on the strat chat of what was going to probably go down. And so we should have brought him in on that strat chat more. I did say to him early on, I was really honest with him, and I said to him, look, buddy, I know that I'm going to be heavily targeted this pre-merge part of the game. And if you help me now, you're going to be targeted because you're such a big physical player. You're going to be targeted after the post-merge part of the game. So if you help me get through that pre-merge, I'll work with you and I'll help you through the post-merge. But it just wasn't something that he wanted to do with me. So I did put it to him because I felt that was like something that I felt that he could work with, but it wasn't to be.
To no avail, and the fans missed out the opportunity to see the first rock draw in Australian Survivor as well with him doing that. So fans were keeping tally and were getting excited, but you know, unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way. Now there is another moment here in the game, and it was very interesting to me. And maybe you can talk a little bit before we even talk about the idol find. Let's backtrack to the period in between, and the fact that you got 3 of the middle-aged mafia into the top, what was it, top 6? That was pretty impressive. That was really impressive to see after.
None of you anticipated that.
No, like I did not anticipate. It would really shock me. After the move that you did against Mark, I thought 100% that was going to be the downfall of the middle-aged mafia. They're not going to go deep into the game. Can you talk about how you maneuvered with the middle-aged mafia and how you were able to mend those bridges with Mark? I guess because there were times where you didn't care for him at all, and then there's times where I'm going to work with him. Like, how did you play the season in such a fluid manner? Because there's not many seasons that you see that happening, where people are always keeping the options open. You know?
Yeah. Well, I guess in life though, you can't hold a grudge. Like, I mean, when I went out there, I was 55. I'm now 56. I just knew from life that you can't, like, you know, and this even holds true with the Valeria situation. So I think from that moment that Mark won the car, and then he took Kitty, Valeria, and myself, because I did not anticipate that he would take, like, I was shocked. I was so shocked. I cried, like I had tears in my eyes when he said, come on, Caroline, let's go. And at that lunch, we really like mended a lot of bridges. So I know that Valeria and I really hashed things out, but I think as a group, like between Mark and I, and between Kitty and Valeria even, we talked about how important it was for us all to stay together. And we did then vote together. And so it was really, it's one of those things, like I know that, you know, people were trying to say to me, do you forgive and forget? And it's like, yes, I forgive and I'm forgetting this, because if I hold on to this grudge through the rest of the game, at some point I might need Valeria's vote. I might need Mark's vote. Didn't work. But do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to burn any bridges. And I think that that's what the edit didn't show, that I really tried to play as, you know, as much of as a social game as I possibly could. Obviously, it didn't all go in my favor, but I really felt like I wanted to. In the end, I did very, very much respect Mark, and I did, and I did want to work with him, and I did think that he was worthy to be in that final 5, final 4.
Now, I do have a very, it's just the spur of the moment question that sort of came up for me. You know, obviously we had Scott leave the game earlier on due to mental health reasons, the way it was portrayed on the show. And he said, I needed to go for my own sake, which gave you that second sort of chance in the game. And then there was a very because I was going to say, you know, Ferris had some really big bombastic moves, and he was quite a social player. So, you know, you went up against a bit of a juggernaut here in the end, and by him taking out Kirby or directly being able to flash that, it kind of looked like he was making that choice because he had the idol and he had the, you know, it's like, I can save her, but I'm not going to do it. I'm stepping away. So it was a really big move in front of the jury. But one move there that for me was quite interesting was, and a lot of fans spoke about this, was the Raymond advantage that ended up taking out Valeria in the game, where Raymond sort of faked not feeling well in the game, faked like, and we were kind of critical a little bit in the sense of how does the people out there, how do they not split a vote? Or why do we not see, like, for instance, if I was out there, I made a very cold-hearted calculation on the podcast, which probably if I was out there, I would think very differently. And I said, I wouldn't vote him out because I'd rather have someone suffering that will take themselves out of the game. But everybody wanted to give him his wish, right? Can you talk through those moments as someone that was out there that just saw Scott leave not that long ago? Suddenly Raymond's not feeling well. Did that have an effect on your thinking around it? And also, if Raymond did get to the end, would that have had blowback on him because he kind of played this up to play this idol? Was it seen as more than just a game move by people out there? Can you speak to that at all? Does that make sense?
Yes, it definitely makes sense. Look, it's so different watching it and being out there, because in that moment out there, you saw me, like, I was watching him. I'm a nurse and a midwife, so I'm watching how much how much water he's intaking and how much food he wasn't eating, and he was barely drinking. And I knew that, God, if someone's going to fake this, I didn't even it looked genuine to me. And especially after what had happened with Scotty, you don't see it, but I make a small speech at that tribal council about the fact that, you know, we've all been affected by mental health in some way. Like, I know it's directly affected me, and I don't know anybody that hasn't been affected by. So it was I'm just a very empathetic person, and I really felt for Raymond in that moment. And, you know, and then Ferris played up to it. He said, okay, get everyone to shout out their vote when they're up at the voting station. And in a way, I feel like we, maybe we were made to look a little bit like fools at that point, because he obviously was fine and he wanted to make a big move. So there's two sides of it, isn't there? There's that really emotional, empathetic side, but then there's that survivor gameplay, strategic side to it as well. And so you applaud the fact that he could, you know, that he really got it over all of us, every single one of us. All of us, our hearts went out to him, and I think that just shows you how much heart all of us had, because we let the game go to save this guy who we thought was really unwell. And I mean, you know, Ray's a really quirky guy, so you don't want to push the boundaries. You don't want to push the envelope. You don't want to make him feel bad about what he's going through out there. And so we thought that we were doing the right thing.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I think, again, like I said, it's so different. Like, this is why Survivor has been on air for over 60 seasons in South Africa, Australia, the US, you know, and there's so many global seasons in non-English speaking countries as well. It's because you could play this thing out 300 times and there'll be different outcomes and different scenarios. And yeah, and it also reminds me of kind of like one thing Tyson said on Winners at War, where he said, some people can take the loss, other people's let it destroy them, you know, because they go out of the game, they become bitter, they really think about every single move. Why did I do that? Why didn't I do that? Where, you know, you need to find that within yourself to say, it was a game. I went out there, I had a crack, you know, maybe it didn't work out my way. And I think this is why I applauded the move that you try to pull off with the idol. I was high on it because I knew that going into that, you had limited information, but I definitely want to ask you about that. Obviously, you find the idol, which is such a great moment to be able to find the idol. And, you know, there were questions asked by my co-hosts in regards to why you didn't let Mark in on it. And my observation was, well, Mark's betrayed you a couple of times in the game. Like, that's a very difficult thing in my mind to trust someone that has done that. Like, can you talk through your thought process there and, you know, why you tried to target Ferris if he potentially had an idol in the game, and if that was also in your thought process going into it, I could be targeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so can you talk us through that? Because it was a very interesting. I applaud the move. I applaud the fact that you tried to play and you went for broke, to be honest.
Oh God, there were so many steps. It was complex. I really wanted a move for myself that I could take to the end. And I thought, part of that thinking was, okay, if I told Mark, number one, can I trust him? And number two, if I include him on it, then is it his move? Is it our move or is it my move? And so he and I were obviously getting along really well. What you don't see is I actually found that idol on day 33. So I didn't find it that day. I held it for 9 days until I played it. And so I got to think about, okay, how am I going to play this, and how I knew that I probably was going to use it to save somebody. And if I knew that Kitty was going home that night, of course I would have played it for her. Anyway, so I knew that Ferris had an idol, and so what I wanted to do is I wanted everyone knew. I'd spoken to Kirby, I'd spoken to Ferris, I'd spoken to Raymond. I was like, I want to this is it. I want to get Mark out. Let's vote for Mark. I wanted them all voting on Mark, and then and they seemed quite genuine about it. And then I said to Mark, you don't see this, but I actually said to Mark, I want you to vote for everyone's voting for you. And no, that's not what I did. I didn't say that. So he thought that so I wanted him to vote for Raymond, and I didn't explain why. And obviously I didn't explain why. But what I wanted him to do is I wanted him to vote for Raymond. I was going to vote for Ferris. I wanted everyone else to vote for Mark. I was going to play my idol for Mark, and then either Ferris would play his idol for himself or he wouldn't, and we would go to a revote, and we could either, if Ferris played his idol, then we voted Raymond out, and if he didn't, then we voted Ferris out. So that was where the logic sat. And you've also got to remember, pardon?
I can see that. So you had a backup for if Ferris, if everybody had their vote wrong on Mark, Ferris does get spooked and plays his idol, Raymond would have been the automatic vote in that case. So you still got someone out of that power position because Ferris and Raymond were so close to each other.
Yeah, and I got a rebel out. And so that's what I really, really wanted. I mean, Kirby said to me, you should have told me, I would have voted for you. I would have voted with you. She would have loved to have got rid of Ferris. So do I regret not telling Kirby and Mark? Yes, there is. Look, and by the same token, you're starving. You're starving, and you're tired, and your mind is on all the time. So every minute that you're awake, you're just thinking about, okay, what's going on here? Where's everyone going? You're just constantly strategizing in your own brain, constantly. And so that's where my mind was at. Was it probably, looking back on it now, at the time, I just thought, fuck, if I pull this off, this is the best move. I think that if I can get to the end, I'm hoping that this can win me the game. Anyway,
it would have been one of the best moves in Australian Survivor history if you pulled it off. It would have been right up there with some of the best moves. But I hope that you find some solace in this, because like I said, this is why I brought up the whole Tyson comment, because some people will look at that and probably not be able to sleep knowing that I was there 90%, but it was 10% off. I needed to do X, Y, or Z. And, you've got to swing. You've got to swing at it when you're out there, and you did. And that's something I think you should hold your head high, that you tried something there. And I think a lot of fans missed the point because they were so results focused, right? It's you got that one thing wrong here or something wrong here.
And have a look at me, Chris. I'm not a young 27-year-old guy. I am a middle-aged white woman, and I did everything I could. I played as hard as I could. I strategized as much as I could. I gave it absolutely everything out there. I did not leave anything like what I perceived at the time to I didn't feel like I left any stone unturned. I tried as hard as I could. I couldn't do any more. And I will never, ever let that eat away at me. I am so proud of what I did and what I accomplished. Despite the result, I know what I did in my game out there, and I know that my close friends that I've made out there know what I did, and I can hold my head high. I'm not letting this eat at me at all.
That's
I
good.
am
That's good.
not at all. And I will tell you that on the night of the finale, you know, obviously I knew that Ferris, I'd only found out that day, but I knew on the night, I knew that
because
Ferris,
a lot of people spoke about the fact that the ending was filmed, and I just want to say hello to Mark because he said hello a while ago. We've got him in the live as well. Like Ferris kind of mentioned that, and I guess he didn't directly mention it, got out on another podcast that there were 2 different endings filmed. Like at the end, one where you win, one where you don't win. Like I don't know how I feel about it almost. Like, you know, you feel a bit iffy because you get someone to celebrate the fact that they've won Survivor and then they don't win it and they don't show that part of it.
My husband comes out and it's like the best feeling ever. And then, I mean, I knew that Ferris had won. I knew that there was a majority of rebels on that jury. I knew that you know, that last day was probably one of the hardest days of my entire life. Like, we woke up and I knew there was a breakfast coming, and I was so excited that, you know, we're doing the last day together. We're having the breakfast together. And I'm like, Ferris, we're getting breakfast this morning. And he's like, what? I said, yeah, on the last day of Survivor, you get breakfast. We're getting pancakes. We're getting vegetables. We're getting orange juice. We're getting coffee, you know, it's going to be awesome. And he's like, oh my, and we got croissants and it was amazing. And then but it's a very busy day. Like, there's a lot happening that day because it's the last day. So you're doing all sorts of other filming stuff as well. And so then you have a small finite time to prepare for this final tribal council, and your body has already left the building. Like,
yeah, I can imagine.
It's done 47 days, Chris. It's done 47 days of, by this point, like, I lost nearly 8 kilos out there. My body was already thinking, like, it can't help it. Like, you're thinking about that bed. I'm thinking about cuddling my husband that night. I'm thinking I'm going to eat chips and salmon, you know, like, I'm thinking about what I'm going to eat. But you've got this huge thing to get through. And it's going to get me emotional because, like, I tried so hard. I knew in my head what I needed to say. I knew what I wanted to get across to the jury. I knew what my moves were. And in that moment, like, when you, like, and unfortunately I was first. So Jonathan says to me, okay, let's see your pitch, Caroline. You know, I had it all in my head, and I got most of it out. Like, I felt like I did very well in my pitch, and you don't see, oh my gosh, you don't see a lot of my pitch, and you see answers. Like, there were different people that asked different questions, and you don't even see my answer, but you see Ferris' answer. Do you know what I mean? So, and so Ferris, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Ferris. Please don't think that, because I love Ferris, and I love him as a winner, and I'm honored that what he's doing.
But you also had an experience. So you're talking about your experience.
I am talking about my experience. And so I did and I wanted to be genuine out there. I didn't want to bullshit anyone. I didn't want to lie. I did not lie. I did not want to be anything other than what I wasn't, I wanted to be myself, but I also didn't want to beg. Like, I wanted to win, I wanted people to see what I had done, and I had hoped that I had portrayed and I had conveyed all that. And that's all that you can hope for. Like, I can't even remember, like, what I said, or I can't even remember. Like, it's such a blur.
Like an out-of-body experience now, thinking back about it. But you had certain portions of the game where you were solidly in control. Like, it wasn't like there weren't, there were certain portions in that game. And it kind of comes to mind, like, I've always said that in Survivor, it's almost like the jury forgets about the pre-merge because half of them don't see it. But your pre-merge was really really impressive. So if a lot of them maybe saw how you ran that pre-merge portion of the game, it could have changed a lot of people's perceptions. But then they saw the post-merge, which again, like you managed to survive. Like, wasn't one of your pitches that you were almost never on the wrong side of the vote? I think you had like once where you were on the wrong side.
I went to 18 tribal councils,
Yeah.
and there was only twice I was on the wrong side of the vote.
Very impressive.
Those two, oh, we've got balloons. Yay! And that was Kitty and Eden. That was it.
Yeah.
I knew on at every other tribal council where the vote was going. I knew who was going home. So if that doesn't tell you that I didn't know what was going on in the game, then I don't know what does, because I definitely felt like I had a good handle on what was happening and where the votes were going. And I felt like I was in enough conversations and whatever I needed to be to know what was going on. So I can't. You
left it all out there. You left it all out there. Let's have a couple of like quick round fun questions to finish it off on, and then I'll ask you one. I
just want to say one thing. And when I went to Fire with Raymond, like we haven't spoken about that. Like,
it was very impressive.
Well, that night, because I haven't created fire in camp, but I've helped and I've collected wood, but we had fire starters there. Like Jaden loved making the fire, Mark loved making the fire, Rihanna loved making the fire. So I didn't want to step on people's toes, and so I was like, you guys do that. But Raymond, and I've heard Mark talk about it, how Raymond kept on running off with the flint and practicing with the flint, and it was like, go for it. That's fine. I know I'm going to be okay. So in that moment out there, when I'm, when we've got a split vote and we know that we're going to go to Fire, like my heart is beating out of my chest. I'm just like, get your shit together, Caroline. You've got to do this. So I had an out of body experience. I can't remember. I don't even know what happened with Raymond. Like, I don't even know whether he got fire. All I was focused on once I stood in front of that at that desk or whatever it was, all I knew was I had to create fire, and I just blocked every single thing else. I didn't hear Jonathan. I didn't hear what the other guys were saying to me. I just knew I needed to do it, and I bloody well did it. And that was a pretty great experience. Like,
let's hope that if you ever play in a Worlds Collide season and you're playing on the Survivor US franchise, that no one sees the footage. Otherwise, you're going to be a big threat over in the US if you can make fire like that.
Oh, it's funny. Yeah. Anyway,
it was a brilliant moment. Brilliant moment. Okay, I'm going to go through a couple of quick questions, fun questions, just quick fire questions, and then we'll finish it off with one last question that I like to ask all Survivor players when they come onto the podcast. So quick fire. The wrong page in front of me. Let me just get my quick fire questions, because I don't want to share this with you at any stage, because I don't want you to know. So speed round.
Okay.
Jeff Probst or JLP?
Oh, JLP.
Let's go. 26 days or 39 days?
Oh, 39 days. 100%.
I feel like I know. I feel like I know where the next one's going to go. Edge of Extinction or Classic Survivor?
Classic Survivor.
There we go. If you could play with any US Survivor player, who would it be and why?
Ooh. Oh, Tyson would be fun. Parvati'd be fun. Oh, there's too many. Like, I'll
give you both, Tyson and Parvati. I think those are two very solid choices. Have anyone actually, and this is not a quick fire, but have anyone actually reached out to you from the US? Like, have you had interactions with US players? Like, who is the one that reached out to you where you had like an out of body fan experience? You're like, I can't believe I'm talking to this person.
Oh,
so many.
Like, there's been quite a few. Oh gosh, I've had Owen Knight reach out to me, and I've had
nice.
I've had, I don't know, there's probably about 5 of them that have reached out to me, and I can't even remember their names off the top of my head.
That's fine.
Yeah,
it must be all from the newer seasons. We can't remember all of the players from the newer seasons.
Yeah,
but Owen's really nice as well. Yeah. If you were to return to a season in a tied Destiny's twist, and you were tied to one of your previous players that you played with, meaning how good they do in the game is how good you do. If they get voted out, you get voted out as well. Like, what player from your season would you want to return tied to your destiny in the game?
Oh my gosh, Chris, what a question.
Try and keep them not a quick fire, but it takes a bit of thought.
Yeah. Gosh. Kirby.
I think it's a very solid choice. I wouldn't mind being tied to Kirby as well. I think she was a great player. Who's the king of Australian Survivor? Is it George or David Gannett?
It's George.
Okay. Queen of Survivor, is it Hayley or Shonny?
Oh, I love them both. I love them both for different reasons. I love them both.
If you could return on any themed season, which season would you want to return on?
Blood versus water.
Blood versus water. There we go. So you take your husband, or
would I'd take my daughter. I'd take my eldest daughter. Yeah. Right. She'd be amazing.
Would she be like Sierra?
Yes.
That's dangerous for you.
Yes, she would, but she'd be so great. She'd be fantastic.
Yeah. Which player that left in the pre-merge do you think deserves a second shot?
Oh, pre-merge. Gosh. Let's go Garrick.
There we go. You already said you had that connection. If you were to play The Amazing Race, tied to one of the castaways from this season, which castaway would you like to play The Amazing Race with?
Oh, good question. Maybe Mark. Maybe Eden. Mark or Eden. That'd be unreal. Yeah.
Eden would be really good, I feel like, in the puzzle side of things, if it comes to it.
Yeah, I'm not good at like drinking yucky stuff. I can touch spiders. I could probably eat a spider even, but I'm not good at eating yucky food. So anyway. I don't know. Mark or Eden?
That is it for the quick round question. So last question I'd like to ask you, and I appreciate your time so much. I said we were going to do this for an hour, but this has been such a great chat and we went way over. What's the one thing that, 10 years from now, if you never get to play again, which hopefully you do, what's the one thing that would always sort of stand out for you, a memory that you had out on the island that could either have been on the edit, could have been something that's not on the edit, but whenever you talk to your husband 10 years from now, 15 years from now, maybe your daughter, this would be the fond thing that you would always remember about being on the show?
There's a couple of things. I don't know whether you saw when we received the letters from home. That was one of the most emotional days, and seeing everybody so emotional about their loved ones, because we didn't get it until quite late, like any love from home till quite late in the game, later than normal. And I felt it was,
which is good. I think it's good. Yeah, it builds the emotion.
Yes, and so it added to the emotion. I mean, nothing will surpass meeting my husband out there and seeing him, and like you're away from your loved ones when you're out there for 47 days, you're gone for, let's say 2 months, and there's no contact and there's nothing. And so seeing him and receiving that letter from home and seeing the photos of my 3 children and the photos of him and I would read those letters every day. I would look at those photos every day, and that's what would get me through every day. Other things, like there were so many beautiful moments, like really fun moments that I feel like early on in that Titans tribe that I'll look back on really fondly. I think the way that we all first got together and the night chats and the stories people would tell at nighttime, I'll never forget any of that, but you don't see any of that. There's a moment.
There any stories about any family members being bank robbers or anything like that? Like, we don't get those stories, but in the US we did get those stories.
Yeah, no, there was some crazy stories, Chris, but I cannot kiss and tell.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Chris is saying this was such it was so insightful. Thank you for telling us about your experience, Caroline. And I think a lot of people would have really enjoyed hearing your thoughts about the season. I just want to thank you for playing the show firstly, because if people don't go out there and play the show, there is no show for us fans to enjoy. And for your willingness to come on here, we'll definitely make the Tom didn't get on tonight, but I feel like at some point Tom does need to face the music. So maybe we'll
Byron, come on, let's go and meet for dinner one night or something.
Let's go. Yeah, put him in his place. He deserves.
No, I don't want to put him in his place, because everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I can only imagine as a podcaster, that's what you've only got what you can like you're just seeing me on the screen, and you can only make your judgments on that. And so,
and sometimes we sometimes also, I think sometimes as podcasters, like for me, I've always said this, and I will always continue to say this. I am willing for anyone, if I've had an opinion about someone that they are like so wrong, I will face the music. I'm happy to talk to someone about it. And I acknowledge that we talk about an edited show. It's 100% the fact. And sometimes podcasters also say things to just, as long as it's not completely going in on someone's character, that's where I feel like you need to draw the line. But we also try and be entertaining. So sometimes we say things for the entertainment shock value of it. Like it's a show at the end of the day. But no, really, really enjoyed having you on the show. This has been so insightful. You're more than welcome to come back to the podcast whenever you want to talk about anything you want to. If you ever felt like next season you wanted to talk about an episode, maybe judge some other castaways for a change, we'd be more than happy to have you on.
I'll be a guest podcaster with you.
100%. What are you doing at the moment? Is there anything that people can like follow, or are you sort of planning on doing anything outside of the show that people should take note of?
No, I'm not doing anything at the moment. I'm focusing on, like, I'm doing a few podcasts at the moment, which has been a lot of fun, and a lot of a few non-Survivor podcasts, which has been really nice as well. I mean, they want to know about my experience on Survivor, but from a very different perspective. So that's been really good. But you can find me. I'm at Mamalicious or Caroline Courtis on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on TikTok. You just need to search my name.
What do you do on TikTok? Let people know.
Oh, you're going to have a look. I've just started on TikTok, and it's been a little bit of fun.
Nice. Okay, well, we'll definitely give you a follow on TikTok. We're on TikTok as well. I think TikTok is such a fun platform. I was kicking and screaming, getting dragged into using it because I'm a typical millennial, and we don't. The TikTok is like the generation. It's like the generation after us, I feel like, or maybe like a very younger millennial. I don't know. But now I'm doing it, and I'm kind of hooked a little bit. It gets dangerous sometimes. You got to get off the TikTok, but there's so many creative people on there. So definitely we'll give you a follow on it. And for those people that tuned in, what I will do is I will also put links to Caroline. So if Caroline, afterwards, if you send me any links that you want people to follow you on, I'll make sure to put it in the description and also pin it in the comment section so people can go and follow you as well. If you like this podcast and you want to see more interviews in the future, please subscribe. The more people we get following our channel, it's absolutely free. It just helps with our credibility when we reach out to people like Caroline or any other Survivor players that have played the show before. And it makes it easier to get others to come onto the show and for us to have these conversations. Obviously, we try and keep it as light as we can. We try and get the live audience involved as well, which I think is quite unique on the Nullified. A lot of other podcasts. So I feel like I only did half of the work tonight. The live asked the other half. So they make my job easier, really, when it comes to it.
Made up for the other guys not being here tonight. I'm so disappointed I didn't make the winner. I'm lucky.
100%. I'm going to have a stern talking to Tom because I feel like he could have made it. So I'm going to definitely have a stern talking to him. But, please subscribe, put the notification bell on. We've got a great community here with the TNT podcast. But for now, I'd like to say, everybody in the live and everybody watching this, grab your torches, head back to camp. We'll catch you guys on our next live. See ya.